My name is Wendy Schmidt, and my co-author is Mary Lynn Clough. We are delighted to be here virtually and hope you enjoy our presentation. This presentation will review how the value of requiring a word count for participation posts in discussion forums adds to academic performance in the online classroom. Is participation beneficial? And if so, in what ways? Scholars of education have long sought ways to improve student writing. Both formal and informal assignments allow students necessary practice to improve skills. However, online students have an additional method to practice their writing. They have written participation through discussion forums. In this presentation, we examine participation posts which are defined as comments made to discussion questions in online forums. We are particularly interested in how and if a required word count impacts participation grades, overall class grades, and writing performance. This presentation will review the research questions that were asked, discuss the value of participation in the classroom, and discuss the impact of word count requirements. The three specific research questions we asked were: does requiring a word count for participation posts contribute to a better quality of writing in participation posts? Does requiring a word count for participation posts contribute to an overall better grade in the class? Is requiring a word count for participation posts associated with a better participation grade? Given the results of the study, which will be discussed shortly, we would like to first establish the value of participation in the online classroom. A literature review reveals that higher participation rates in discussion forums do in fact lead to better academic performance. Dallimore, Hertenstein, and Platt found that over 70% of students questioned observed a positive relationship between their own participation and learning. Students felt that participation increased engagement, helped students retain information, confirmed prior knowledge and understanding, provided clarification, and deepened understanding through hands-on and application-based learning opportunities. Using group discussion boards, web conferencing, chat sessions, interactive live discussions, and other emerging digital technology increases reflection and metacognition. Taylor found that higher number of student posts in online discussions increased student success rates, and that instructor interaction within discussion forums as opposed to email also increased student success. Dostal and Gabriel assert that real audiences give students real reasons for writing, which is something that is accomplished in the online classroom by definition. In short, not only does written participation have the potential over the long term to help students hone their writing skills in front of a real audience, it also encourages student engagement, which can have a positive impact on learning. In other words, a participation component in the online classroom is particularly important because higher levels of perceived social presence in online classes greatly increases a learner's success in the class. In this study, students were given an opportunity to discuss the benefits of classroom participation and whether a required word count had an impact or not on their performance in participation, writing, and in their overall grade. Topics of consideration included everything from the type of course, instructor interaction, and classroom environment to self-esteem and writing skills. Of all noted comments about participation, the most common responses from students were these. Overall, the students felt that participation created a warm and welcoming classroom environment. The students enjoyed connecting with classmates and instructors. Their self-esteem was negatively impacted by participation at first. They indicated that they were insecure about their writing abilities and were afraid of possibly being judged by others. However, by the end of the class, they felt that participation had a positive impact on them overall and, in fact, helped them to develop self-confidence. The students appreciated clear participation requirements provided from their instructors. And lastly, the students felt that writing skills were improved over the length of the course. Students did take the time to share comments about participation requirements specifically. For example, they noted the value of posting on time and regularly. One student advised fellow students to, quote, participate in class participation in a timely manner, end quote. And another recommended that it was wise to, quote, participate frequently and consistently in class discussions, as this makes you feel as though you are in a classroom, end quote. Regarding word count specifically, a few students felt that a word count encouraged fluff, and that as such, they included unnecessary words simply to meet that requirement. However, most students acknowledged that a word count pushed them to meet and often exceed expectations, as well as to dig deeper into a topic and essentially gain more knowledge. As noted, this study looked specifically at the impact of requiring a word count for online discussion posts. Would making this a requirement result in better writing grades? Would it result in better class grades? Could it possibly result in better participation grades? In our study, we included 18 online sessions of humanities, English, and general studies courses at a university for a total of 305 students. Students in all sections were required to make 8 posts over 3 days to the course discussion threads. Half of the courses, for a total of 154 students, mandated a word requirement of 75 to 100 words per participation post, while half, for a total of 151 students, did not have a word requirement. Both groups were given guidelines on what constituted a substantive contribution and thus would merit credit. Participation grades and overall grades were noted in both groups. To understand how word count affected quality of writing, each post was given a ranking. Needs improvement, meets expectations, or exceeds expectations. For needs improvement, we assigned the student writing as a 1. Meets expectation was given a 2, and exceeds expectation was given a 3. We will review the results on the next several slides. In brief, requiring a word count had a slightly negative effect on writing performance. It did not impact final grades one way or the other. However, it did have a positive impact on participation grades. A more detailed discussion of each of the results will follow. Interestingly, students who operated under a word count requirement tended to have a slightly less quality of writing than those who did not. On a scale of 1 to 3, with 1 needing improvement, 2 meeting, and 3 exceeding. Word count students scored 1.9, while no word count students scored 2.1. We hypothesize that word count students may have been more focused on meeting the word count and thus tended to add fluff to their writing without adding additional substance, nor were they as inclined to pay attention to grammar and punctuation. With that said, we hope to explore in the future whether or not the large number of participation posts made in the online classroom over several years does contribute to better writing and communication skills. Given society's increasing dependence on e-correspondence and collaboration, can the sheer volume of writing demanded in many online classes improve written communication? Conceivably, this study could be accomplished by comparing the quality of writing of graduating online students who achieved their degree exclusively through a virtual university with students who achieved their degree exclusively through the same school but through the campus classroom. Also, interestingly, there was no discernible difference in final grades between students whose class required a word count and those who did not. Students in word count classes had, on average, an 84%, or a B, while no word count students had essentially the same average of 85%. This suggests that adding a word count component to online discussions does little, if anything, to improve overall learning outcomes. However, this conclusion may be mitigated by the participation grade and how it fits into the larger point breakdown of the class. For example, if participation only counted for 15% of the class grade, its impact on measurable learning outcomes would be minimal. Finally, and perhaps most interestingly, there was a positive impact on participation grades by adding a word count requirement. Word count students, on average, had a 92% participation grade, while students with no word count requirement only averaged 86%. The difference between a B and an A- is notable. Two conclusions can be drawn from this. First, because studies show that participation and discussion is a viable and important component of online courses, and that it is correlated with lower levels of social isolation and higher learning outcomes, then anything that encourages more frequent and robust discussion is worth consideration. Second, when presented with a higher standard, students will strive to reach it and may even exceed it. In fact, 100% of the students in all classes who received an A or an A- for their participation grade surpassed the required number of posts. In terms of class discussion, this may also mean far fewer "I agree" type posts and more substantive posts, which suggests more introspection and thought. Additionally, students may be more inclined to use the textbook in search of additional material. They may also be more willing to engage in deeper discussion with other students and the instructor, knowing that a substantive post is called for. Wang found that adding an assessment piece, which included a word requirement for participation posts, helped build a constructive learning environment. This data confirms Wang's conclusions and provides instructors with one additional tool that can positively enhance the online classroom. In summary then, adding a word count requirement to discussion posts had a negative impact on writing, albeit a small one. This may reflect students' preoccupation with meeting the word count over other requirements like correct punctuation and even substantive content. Second, adding a word count requirement had no discernible impact on final grades. Third, adding a word count requirement did clearly impact participation grades in a positive manner. In these classes, students pushed themselves to meet participation requirements and even exceed them. They were more likely to engage their fellow classmates and instructors in robust discussions with fewer "I agree" comments. Conceivably, they may have looked to the textbook and class materials to enhance their understanding of a topic before writing on it. Overall, adding a word requirement can be one way to encourage a richer and more dynamic class discussion. Thank you for your time.